Hi, welcome to episode 2 of More Sports. I'm your host, Devin Moore. Guys, this is episode 2, and I'll give you another rundown of the show. This is a show where I talk about all things sports and give my own opinion on certain topics. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about today is actually the Women's FIFA World Cup. You know, it's a big event going on right now. Obviously, they're in the group stage. It's going to be interesting. And I'll give you guys a little rundown how they're doing in the standings if you haven't kept up. In Group A, we got France is in first. In Group B, we have Germany is in first. In Group C, we have Italy in first. Group D, we have England. Group E, we have the Netherlands. And Group F, we have USA. Which obviously everybody remembers USA won the last World Cup, which is about, obviously 4 years ago. And it's just crazy. And, me personally, I hope the USA team wins again. Obviously, they're defending champs, but keep watching the matches and stuff like that. Italy's not playing around here. They're destroying everybody they come across, and it's gonna be an interesting thing. So let's see what happens. In my opinion, I'm hoping for Team USA. Oh, and more recently, another big thing that happened. Next thing we'll talk about, Toronto. They just won their first NBA final in franchise history, which is crazy. Obviously, the underdogs in the whole situation, and everybody thought Golden State was going to win. But obviously, any of you guys that are big basketball fans, it seems like everybody was talking about Kevin Durant, his injury, and I was watching the recording for the other day and watched him go down. You could see his what was his Achilles heel, his meniscus. I can't remember. You could see that muscle kind of dislocate while he was on the court, and everybody's just like, oh, what's going to happen to KD? What's going to happen to KD? And I think apparently I saw the other day, everybody's like, oh, he's leaving Golden State, but I don't know, we'll see what happens. I mean, to me, that seems like the main focus was leading up. Everybody was like, oh, it's going to Game 7, and, Golden State's going to win it, and I was like, I'll cheer for the underdogs here, let's go Toronto. And, of course, that's history. Toronto won their first ever championship. It's going to be great. Oh, and there's another thing. Leading up to this thing, everybody knows the rapper Drake is a big Toronto fan, and I thought it was funny. I was reading an article about a week ago that said Drake's bad luck. Something like with all the sports teams, because anytime you see Drake support somebody, they lose badly. Like some of the examples was obviously Toronto. Another one was Conor McGregor. That's one that I remember sticking out the most was Conor McGregor. He was walking around with the Ireland flag, and that was his fight against Nick Diaz, which is the fight Conor McGregor ended up losing. So there was an article talking about how Drake was a super fan and how he was like bad luck to people. And then another thing about Drake, I saw someone post on Twitter. It was Twitter. They were like, Drake finally won a NBA final, and I'm just like, Drake didn't do anything. He's just a fan, It's crazy, but hey, good job to Toronto. Good luck to them. Alright, time to move on to our next topic. You guys know it's summertime. You know what that means. It's baseball season. Baseball's in full swing now, since we're in June. And first thing I want to talk about, we're going to talk about Little Leagues. Little League Baseball here in the national level. Checked it out the other day. It turns out Hawaii shuts out South Korea to claim its third LLWS crown in over a decade. Actually, reading the article, it only took one pitch, and Hawaii wins their first their third title. It seems like in over a decade period. And it's crazy. Watching the video, kid basically just strikes him out, and it's just wild. Reading on Twitter, they were saying it's like the kid's name was Holt. Kid Holt goes, it was great because we all knew that the pitcher was tough to hit. Holt took from there, threw a two-hitter, led to Hawaii to a 3-0 victory in the Little League World Series Championship, the first shutout in a title game since 2002. It was Holt's first ever complete game. And the team from the Hawaii allowed just 3 runs in the entire tournament, shut out 4 of its 5 opponents, stuck out 53 at bat in 34 innings. Now that's pretty good if you ask me. It's crazy how little leaguers are going to get attention. That's another thing. I want to talk about television exposure in a future episode. But that's just a little rundown with our Little League Baseball here. Now we're going to move on to the major leagues in just one second. Okay, it's time to move over to baseball. I'm going to do a quick little rundown of the standings. In the American League, we have Tampa Bay leading in the East. In the Central, the Minnesota Twins. In the West, the Houston Astros. And the National League in the East, the Atlanta Braves are actually in first. In the Central, we got the Milwaukee Brewers. In the West, the Los Angeles Dodgers. And as you guys know, for all us big Atlanta Braves fans, the Braves are actually doing pretty good. They got a 41-29 standing record, obviously dominating strong. And let's just hope they can, pull it off coming postseason. Yet we're so far away in that regard. Okay, speaking of the Braves, we're going to talk about the Braves here just for a quick second. It looks yesterday Brian McCann delivers a 2-run single. Braves win 8 straight. Man, let me tell you, Brian McCann, that man is the GOAT. I mean, I remember growing up watching him, Tim Hunton, and Chipper Jones, talking about good time to be alive being a Braves fan back in, late 90s, early 2000s. And, for a while there, the Braves were kind of, we kind of had that high point going for us, and then, they started slumping. But I'm hoping for a rebuild period, and that seems like, like I just said, did a little quick standings. We're dominating right now in our division, but obviously, it's still a long way to go. We still got July and August and then September, but it's going good for us Braves fans, and all we can do is hope for the best. So yeah, Braves are doing good. Brian McCann's a GOAT. Let's see what happens. I'm excited for him. All right, next time we're going to talk about college football here real fast. Even though it's not in season, now it's time to be recruiting. But I want to talk about Clemson's quarterback Trevor Larson, sorry for that bad pronunciation on my part. I came across an article earlier today talking about how he is, he's only a sophomore, but he is NFL ready. In the article, it talked about a certain pass he threw, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's amazing!" And in fact, it says here, one NFL GM says Lawrence would have been a top 5 pick in the draft this year if he had been eligible. And I'll say one thing: I do remember seeing him play, Trevor Lawrence, this year. I mean, I'm a big UJ fan, but I keep up with everybody, and yeah, he's pretty impressive for a young guy. He's developed some, obviously he's a NFL superstar mentality, and it'd be interesting to see him as he gets older. He's only a sophomore. I believe he's got another year at least, and he's just a dog. ESPN, I'll quote another guy, Mel Kiper from ESPN, called him super elite, which puts him in the same category with Andrew Luck and John Elway as one of the most surface NFL prospects. And then it also talks about, although high-ranking NFL personnel says there's not much he lacks, at some point he'll be the first pick in the draft. And it's crazy because everybody's watching. The article's talking about everybody's watching what he does, and that's another thing I would like to talk about when I was reading this article. It's like the pressure of college athletics. In my opinion, these are still, at the end of the day, these are still kids. He's going to be a sophomore. He's probably 19, going to be 20 years old. But all that exposure is just going to put him under pressure, and if he can't handle the pressure, he's just going to fall apart. He's just going to underperform, and he's going to lose his stock value, and not stock value, but draft value or whatever, and he's going to be put on the bottom of the board if he can't handle it. But obviously, he competed in the national championship this year, did great. I think he'll be all right. But other players, they can't handle this kind of pressure. You got to watch what they do these days. You might as well put college athletes as much on the same level as pro athletes now with all this exposure and stuff. It's just crazy. But either way, that's like everybody's watching what he does. Man, needs to watch what he does and things like that. But Terrence Lawrence, I think he will be a number 1 draft pick here in about 2 or 3 years. We'll see what he does, and it'll be pretty good. I can't wait for him. I also hope he can go to the Falcons. That'd be even better. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Okay, next thing I want to talk about this show that I've been watching on Netflix. Really, two shows on Netflix that are football related. It's Last Chance U and Friday Night Tykes. And then with Last Chance U, I'll give you a quick rundown of that program. It's basically Last Chance U, the documentary series, and they follow, you know, these two college programs and all the things going on with these kids. The first season, East Mississippi Community College. That's a great program run by Coach Buddy. Like everything he does, but man, that show's crazy with him cussing and yelling and stuff like that. But I think it's a pretty good program. It shows that that all in college athletics is a tough sport in all levels, not just D1, D2, or D3s, but also in the JUCO level. I mean, there's some talented guys. Most of them, obviously were transfer level guys, but pretty talented guys, and it's a pretty good program. Check it out. And then part 3, which really because first 2 parts are from East Mississippi College, and then part 3 is actually up in Kansas Independent College up in Kansas with Coach Brown. Let me tell you, you want to talk about somebody with a potty mouth? Whew, he's dropping F-bombs every other minute. I mean, it's crazy. Like this one time he was throwing a fit, and I was just like throwing stuff. Something about his kids, like eligibility is important, in athletic in general, because you got to have good grades these days just to play ball. At the same time, you got to be athletic on the field and smart in the classroom and stuff like that. But I was like, man, this is crazy. But yeah, it's a good both college programs. It shows us that a lot of hard work goes into college athletics, and if you're a big college football fan, I recommend checking it out, stuff like that. And then Friday Night Tykes is actually about a youth football program down in Texas. And man, when somebody told me that football was big in Texas, I was like, yeah, whatever. But that show kind of shows you how serious they take it. These kids are about, 6 or 7 years old. Yeah, youngest is probably 6 or 7. Oldest is, late elementary school, early middle school, probably 12 or 13 when you stop playing rec ball at that age and, move on to high school sports. I mean, these coaches are all like, man, they're yelling at these kids, treating these kids like college players. It's crazy. Like, kids knocked down, they're like cussing at them. Like, kids get knocked down, they're like, they pick them up, coaches pick them up, be like, stop crying, yada, 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 yada. It's crazy. Like, they are building that culture, which, I have a sports management degree, and we were talking about how when is the right age, to tell kids when's a good time to learn about winning. When do you think it's the right age to tell them you have to win, you have to win, you have to win? Because definition of sports, you just go out and you have fun. But now as a culture, we're like winning is everything. Like you have to win, and these kids, they're learning at a young age that they have to win. They have no choice. That's all they gotta do. They gotta go big or go home. And then there's this one incident. I forget which season it is. There's 3 seasons on Netflix. Yeah, there's 3 seasons on Netflix. I think it was in season 1. There was like 2 parent fights, and man, it's crazy. Because like, they do a little interview with the parents. They're like, oh yeah, my son, he's the best, and we gotta win, 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 win. And they're in the stands. They're like, oh, my kid can beat your kid. And at one point, I forget what team it is. There's one program in the league that is run by this major football family. The dad, worked in athletics for years. The mom just loves ball, and her kids play. It got to the point, it was during one of the games, where the mom got kicked out of the stands. It was crazy. It was like the guy, I can't remember exactly what happened, but the guy was talking some stuff, and the mom just went off, where it got to the point where, there's always security. Like anybody that, I will say this, security is an important thing to have in an event regardless. Just throwing that out there for any future sports management majors that want to get into event facility management. Always have security. Or it got to the point where the officer had to escort the lady off the off the field because she is causing a ruckus. Well, no, if I had to go back and watch, both people got kicked off. It's crazy. But yeah, but in my opinion, I think the right age to say, hey, you need to win is really, I'd say around high school level because it's just how culture we are. And, I will say this, learning in my degree, learning that we have this culture, winning is everything. It's like even in high school ball, if those coaches can't win games, they get fired. Stuff like just like in college. In college, you can't win games because you win games, you bring in money. You can't win games, you're out of there. Stuff like that. But to me, I think an important age is the high school level is a good time to tell these kids like, hey, we have to win, you have to win. Stuff like that. Me personally, not around middle school age. I think middle school and elementary schools around the time where you teach the kids the fundamental of the game. Just let them go out and do the best of their abilities and have fun. But yeah, Last Chance U and Friday Night Tykes, two great TV shows to watch if you just love football in general. I recommend checking them both out. Okay, next thing we're going to talk about is MLS, soccer real fast. Going to talk about Atlanta United. One of the defending champions of 2018 won their first championship ever in club history. Great time to be alive if you're down in Atlanta. But, obviously, it's about to be that time of year in the MLS where it's time to do their transfer window. And I just want to give you guys a quick rundown of the report. Report says here that it has not been born in Atlanta. Just weeks into the season, many Atlanta United fans want new head coach Frank de Boer head on a planner, but slowly the Dutchman got things turned around, and suddenly in 2018, the 2018 champions are just 2 points out of the top spot in the Eastern Conference. De Boer has already said that the team will achieve during the transfer window. Will be active, not achieve. I'm sorry. Will be active in the transfer window, adding fullbacks and depth would help make the stronger second half push, which is true. Okay, that's one thing I wanted to talk about was the coaching change here real fast on Atlanta United. And, it was crazy to me, they just won I'm a big Atlanta United fan. I live near Georgia and stuff like that. I love soccer. I grew up loving soccer and stuff like that. When we got the new coaching change, I was like, oh boy, we finally reached a championship, that, an inside joke for all those people down here in that. For all the people down in Atlanta, it's called the Atlanta Curse. None of our sports team can win a major championship. Well, now, there's a joke going around that's finally broken with Atlanta United. But anyways, when this new coaching came in, I was like, oh, great. Because it usually happens. You bring in a new head coach and the team's going to obviously do bad and stuff like that. But, that happened for Atlanta United right off the season. And I'm like, oh, great, here we go, our rebuilding period. It's going to at least be probably two seasons by the time we're back on top. But no, obviously like the article said, they're getting close to being back up top. And once Atlanta United, they got some pretty talented guys on their roster. And, I'm not worried. Hopefully they'll finish strong, make another playoff appearance, go strong in that, go back to the MLS Championship, win another one. But, we'll see what happens. Hashtag praying for Atlanta. Okay, moving on. I'm actually gonna stay on the transfer window here for a second, checking out what's going on with all the ball clubs here. So, first thing we're talking about Chicago Fire. Chicago Fire are, they're doing pretty straightforward. They're looking great as they're in a 2-0 victory over the Minnesota United, and they'll keep going. They're obviously going strong. The transfer window is doing good, but however, Cincinnati's ball club, they're a new ball club. They have actually not been going easy. In the article, it says that former coach Alan, I'm going to butcher this name, Knock, who was fired in mid-May, never really had much of a chance after the club failure to hire a true general manager. Club president Jeff Berding filled that role until recently, resulting in a stockpile of defensive midfields and hardly any attacking talent. And gratefully, a new GM is now in place in the Grail. I'm gonna slander this. Nick Camp as the interim coach, and this another. I'm gonna slander this name again. Join Demplin, but the UFC Cincinnati would recently help itself out by adding a good score this summer. Yeah, rough time for FC Cincinnati. They're gonna obviously having a rough time. So when you fire someone from higher up, you basically, like I mentioned before, you got to rebuild and stuff like that. But hey, still young in the season. They can hopefully finish out strong, rebuilding, stuff like that. But however, the next team, the Colorado Rapids, they're not doing good as they are actually doing pretty worse right now. as bad as it can get in the MLS. They have no wins, 8 losses, and 2 miserly draws was all the Raptors could point out after 10 games. Anthony Hudson was given the have no hand in, have ho and come in for Connor Casey, who has made Colorado a younger, more dramatic side with the direct brand of soccer that is getting results. Colorado could still use help in all areas, especially defense, but things are looking up for the first time in a while in the Rocky Mountains. So, yeah, Colorado, obviously they're having a rough start. Obviously, no wins and 2 draws. And that's one thing when you bring in a lot of young guys. I've seen personally, you bring in a young team, and they're going to have to rebuild over time. So, I don't know. Good luck to them. They're just going through their hard patch right now. And then, and then Columbus, injury takes tolls on every team, but Columbus has been stung particularly hard in 2009. And, this year they have a lot of injuries. First was his flying fullback, Milton, I'm going to butcher this name, Milton Verlazi is going down with a season-ending knee injury in preseason, and now table seller Fernando Higuain is out for a second half of the season. Now the Columbus attacker isn't one to make opposing defense nervous. So if the Crew wants to be in the midfield mix there, be wise to find a playmaker fill in for the Argentina. And then DC United enjoying a strong start to the season, but has tailed off in recent weeks and faces some serious questions to start the international breaks for all the talk of the I'm going to butcher this though. Let's go Asco Rocky partnership. DC sure could use a true number 9 to complete rowdy and also add some depth. If things continue to trend downward and Coach Ben Olsen can't sort things out straight formulation, it could get ugly in the national capital. Which is another thing which I find interesting about the MLS. Obviously it's not all just Americans in the league. It's all these international players that are good enough for international duty. Once they leave, it's when things get really interesting, because if you're going to play for a national team, you're obviously a starter for a club team, and once those guys leave for international duty, it's like, all right, it's time for all the second strings to get off the bench and go play 1 or 2 games, which to me I always found interesting. And I found it more interesting because you're getting guys that they're usually bench most of the time. They get their obviously like 15 minutes of fame and stuff like that. Keeps the game interesting. But anyway, continuing on, before this, FC Dallas had made it very clear that it was going all in with its youngsters, and it has resulted in top five for the first half of the season. Once everyone is back in tow from international duties, Dallas' abilities to tap into its ferocious youth system will provide enough in-depth to keep the Texans competitive, assuming the likes of Paxton Pomac or Edwin Carrell are not sold. Nevertheless, Dallas could still use some more help up top. And that's another thing. It's like this international duty is going to affect all these club teams too. But everybody will be doing good. Everybody seems to be doing strong in MLS, better than others. But hey, like I said, the first half of the season's over. Now it's time to move on to the second half of the season, and let's see who can make a playoff picture. Okay, moving away from the transfer window, because if I talk about that any longer, going through the rest of the teams, we're gonna be here all day. But I don't want to bore you guys' ears off, so I'm gonna move on to the WNBA real fast. Talking about this quick article talking about Jamie Thompson is the glue that holds the Connecticut Suns together, which I found interesting. In the article, Jamie Thompson consented the slight shift between her Sun team being significant, fired up, and then tearing towards the edge of an emotional cliff. The Suns player with the most experience, Thomas, is in her 5th season with the Suns and 9th overall in the WNBA. She knows exactly what Coach Kurt Miller needs from her. In the article, she quotes, "You can feel when your team is getting out of character. When I stay steady, it helps. I can notice I stay calm," Thompson, what she says. And then she added with laughter, and Kurt can be kind of, I think the word she's using, festy. He can get a little riled up, so I try to be that mentor, or monitor, my bad. The Suns are so far, they're off to a 6-1 start this weekend. They'll face the past 2 WNBA champions at Minnesota on Friday and at home versus Seattle on Sunday. which you can watch on ABC at 3:30. While they're not getting ahead of themselves, the Suns have quite confidence as a team, much like Thompson has individually. In post players, they have Jaquan Jones has some people with all around superstar ability. She currently averages her average is 18 points a game, her rebounds 12.1, and a 3.0 block shot in her fourth WNBA season. In the article quote, she has that playing experience overseas that helps her adjust to the speed and physicality of the game. Thompson says of the 6'6" Jones, but it's also being an assistant designed for each player to play her game. We know she's very quick and able to show all these things here, pushing the ball, translation, breaking someone down one-on-one, hitting the three, but also using her side on the inside. Another player, Courtney Williams, her point average is 14.7, one of the best mid-range shooters guards in the league. And it seems that as someone who gets hot and can't be stopped, Ennis Thompson, who right now is averaging 10.3 points per game, 9.1 rebounds per game, and then her other teammate, Shamir Sigler, who's got 8.9 points per game, are veteran starters who know their roles and will exceed them. The Suns also have a bench that is going to get a tons of minutes or produce huge numbers, but it fits what the Suns are trying to do. Well, I will say this: I don't watch WNBA that much, but when I do, pretty good to watch. I recommend checking them out. But we'll see what they do. It's interesting that she says she sees herself as a leader. It's good that she sees a leader, and I say good luck to the Suns. Hope they can keep it together. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to the Blues for winning their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. I forgot to mention that earlier in the program. I mean, crazy times to be alive. I was watching the NHL. I wasn't watching the NHL. Sorry for the slander. The NHL playoffs closely, but I was watching, briefly, and I was just watching them, do their thing. It was crazy that they won it. So, congrats to them and their first cup. Their first cup in franchise history. Hopefully, they can come back next year and defend it. Okay, so this next thing I want to talk about the free agency thing going on in the NFL. It's a off season for the NFL, and it's now time for a big time, to focus on the draft and the free agents and stuff like that. So let's check out what's going on here. So obviously, one thing happened on the 23rd, the Seattle Seahawks send defensive end Frank Clark, the 84th overall pick. And, the Kansas City Chiefs send the 29th and 92 pick, lease for 2020 second-round pick for them. Now, was this a good trade? Apparently to the article, for the Chiefs, it was not a good idea. For the Chiefs, it was a D+, but for the Seahawks, it was a B+. And, of course, the article says, wow, makes no sense. The Chiefs are giving up an emotional haul in this deal. Let's say they end up making it to the AFC Championship game, and they send the 60th pick in the 2020 draft to the Seahawks to finish up this trade. If they finish with a higher draft pick than the 49ers, whose picks they own as part of the forward trade, they will send the Niners pick instead. When they calculate the value of each pick using the I'm sorry if I'm going to slander this name, the Chase Sturton draft value chart, this trade values Clark at 21.1 points of draft capital, which is somewhat between the 7-8 overall selection and typical draft. Most organizations would build some level of discount because the 2020 second round pick is delayed comparison, but you get the idea. Stuff like that. And continuing on Saturday, April 6th, the Cowboys trade DeMarcus Lawrence, defensive signs with the Cowboys. He got a 5-year contract worth $105 million. The article quotes this as a C+ grade and says, given that Lawrence has held most of the leverage in negotiation, it's not surprised that the Boise State product was able to get a better deal than the likes of Troy Flower and D Ford. Lawrence is one of the only three to the top a $18 million average annual salary, and he gets all the way to the $21 million. Flower and Ford were on their second franchise tag, which means that Lawrence was guaranteeing $20 million on a one-year deal if he chose to sign the offer. Doing so would have left the Cowboys with the option of moving on from Lawrence in 2020 or signing him to a third franchise tag for $29.5 million. Instead, the Cowboys will lock up Lawrence on a 5-year pack. The deal reportedly has $65 million guarantee, but I double these are full guarantees at signing. Dallas typically guarantees a large signing bonus and 2 years of base salary to its star players in its extension. We know Lawrence will take home a $25 million signing bonus and a $65 million salary in 1 year, which means a total of at least $31.5 million in full guarantees at signing, which is crazy. All that money, man. I wish I was playing for the Cowboys. And then on Monday, on April 1st, we had the chance the Cleveland Browns get safety Eric Murray. Kansas Chiefs get defensive end Emil. I'm gonna butcher this name, Emil Bagbin. For this grade, the article quotes this being a B- for the Chiefs, for the Browns it being a C. One of the lessons we've learned over the past years is the Browns general manager John Dorsey doesn't like Sashi Brown's draft picks after trading Oba and cutting Ricardo Lewis and Derek Kinder over the weekend. The Browns are just left with 3 members of the deposed general manager's 14 players class from the 2016 draft, which include middle linebacker Joe Schulberg, backup wideout Rashard Higgins, and tight end Seth DeValue. It's no surprise that Cleveland wants to upgrade a defensive end from Oakland and who wasn't healthy or particularly productive as a starter over the past 2 seasons. After racking up 5.5 sacks and 16 knockdowns as a rookie, the Oklahoma State product guaranteed just over 7 sacks and 13 knockdowns over 24 starts in the 2017-18 after the Browns traded Oliver Vernon, the writer on the wall for Updeck was a deal. So yeah, the Browns are actually doing pretty good, in their thing. I remember recently they just signed Odell Beckham, which I thought was crazy. I thought I'd never see Odell Beckham in a Browns uniform, but hey, crazy things happen in the NFL all the time and stuff like that. Okay, on March 29th, Chicago traded running back Howard to the Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Eagles get running back Jordan Howard. The Chicago Bears get the 2026 round pick. Now the article quotes this has been a C+ for the Bears, and for the Eagles a B+. And the article quotes, "We know the Eagles don't like committing serious assets toward running backs, even if it means routing players in and out of roles. You could argue that there's a point reaction to the year in which Chip Kelly was general manager and signed DeMarcus Murray and Ryan Matthews, but the Philly hasn't cycled through guys such as LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ivory and has been just fine. Coach Doug personally basically played in the hot hand after a job went down last season, but that was a great generally interception of temptation in 2018. Philly don't have a single bag top 85 yards or post a game with more than 9 successful rushes by the exact point, adding the Eagles could have run their things back in 2019 with the likes of Josh Adams and Wheeler Smallwood as their primary ball carriers. But it seems like they would target a low-cost veteran to be in the mix." So yeah, guys, that's going to do for the free agency drive. I'm going to keep up with this as more episodes go on. Obviously, more still in that hype and stuff like that. So I'm going to transition to another topic. Alright guys, I know I said I was going to transition to another topic, but I think that'll do it for today's episode of More Sports. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys will tune in for episode 3 in the future. Remember, you can listen to this on Spotify and many other platforms. Thank you and have a wonderful day.